Top 5 ratios you should know when buying apartments. Hello, I'm Cordell Davenport, and I'm the founder of SmallApartmentInvestors.com. I've filled that website with a lot of information regarding buying apartments, investing in apartments, and hopefully it can be a resource for you. So after this presentation, check it out. All right. So why ratios? A ratio is a simple equation we learn in grammar school. And it's used to express relationships between groups of numbers. And when you look at ratios and analyzing apartments, they help you understand the value of that particular building. And it helps you gauge if it's a good buy or if it's a bad buy. And sometimes it can be used as a gauge, like a ruler, a general rule of thumb, as you look at specific things and how you measure. Because a lot of the times you look at an apartment building, it's intimidating. You don't know where to start. You just can't go off what the price says. You have to analyze it, because an apartment building is like buying a business when you buy an apartment. So hopefully these ratios will help you out. Number one is the capitalization rate. We'll talk about that. The cash on return on investment, sometimes known as cash on cash. The total return on investment, the debt service coverage ratio, and the gross rent multiplier. Okay, number one, capitalization rate, also known as cap rate. So what you do is you take the net operating income and you divide it by the sales price. And of course, the income is you get the revenues minus expenses equals the net operating income. And as you can see, this ratio is very simple. It's used to measure the relationship between the income that's generated by the apartment and the price it's being sold for. Now, buying an apartment building as related to this equation is really no different from buying a CD from your bank. And as an investor, you're willing to pay for an investment, a certain capital you want to give up because you want a return to come back to you. And you want to know the rates. Now, let's say we know that the net operating income is taken by subtracting total operating expenses from the gross income. And if you were to pay all cash for an apartment building, the NOI represents the portion of income that is yours to keep before taxes and capital improvements. Now, on the yield of your investment, if you were considering purchasing an apartment building that yielded $50,000 annually, and the seller was asking $800,000, should you buy it or not? You want to look at the cap rates. Plug in the numbers. So I mentioned about $50,000 and the sales price is $800,000. So as you can see, this is what our cap rate is going to give us. If the net operating income is $50,000, the sales price is $800,000. It yields a 6.25%. Now assume that comparable properties in the market are selling for 10%. It's a little bit lower. Now, armed with this knowledge, you can see and if it's really a good buy or not. Okay. Once again, so we have cap rate, NOI divided by price. So on the inverse, we get the price, we throw in the NOI at the top, and we divide by the cap rate, 50,000 divided by 10% equals 500,000. So in this example, based on the limited information we have, we know the apartment is overpriced by 300,000. Now, when you understand this simple yet but powerful equation, it's really like the fundamentals to properly assessing value. It allows you to quickly determine if the asking price is reasonable or not. Ratio 2, cash return on investment. So the cash return on investment is often referred to as a cash on cash return. It is a ratio of the remaining cash after debt service to invested capital. You can see the formula right there at the bottom. The cash RI is different from the NOI and the cap rate in that cash or ROI is calculated after debt service, which is your mortgage, while the cap rate is calculated before the debt service or your mortgage. It's excluding tax implications. And if you were to pay all cash for an apartment building, the cap rate and the cash ROI will be the same. Most investors, however, they elect to utilize other people's money. Probably heard of that term, OPM. And which means that the cash return become a function of the return of your invested capital. That's where the cash on cash name comes in. So while the cap rate is an important ratio used in determining property values, the cash ROI is an important ratio to use to determine your cash rate on your capital. Okay. 3, total return on investment. Total ROI equals remaining cash after debt service, which is your mortgage, your principal reduction. So as you pay your mortgage, you're earning some stuff there as a reduction, and you're going to divide that by the cash investment that you provide. So the total return on investment is similar to the cash ROI with one important distinction. It accounts for that portion of return which is no cash, namely your principal reduction. In other words, it takes into account the portion of the loan that is reduced each year by payments that are applied to the remaining loan balance, or the principal portion of the loan payment. The total ROI is a ratio of the remaining cash after debt service, which, like I said, is your mortgage, plus principal payments to invested capital. The total ROI does exactly as it says. It provides a measurement of the total return of your invested capital by capturing both the cash and the non-cash portions. The non-cash is similar to making a house payment for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. The value in there in the form of increased equity in your house as you reduce the loan balance a little at a time. The gain is realized and converted at the cash. When you sell the property, that's when you get your cash based upon the equity. Number 4, debt service coverage ratio. So the debt service coverage ratio, also known as the debt service ratio, measures the relationship of the amount of cash available to service the debt payments, which is the net operating income, to the required debt payment. There's the formula at the bottom. You can see. Now, this ratio is especially important to the bank, to whoever is giving you the loan. Now, their primary concern is your ability to pay the mortgage. They need to know you have the ability to make more than what the mortgage is. So the common ratio is like 1.20. Now, a number of factors influence the lender's DSCR requirement, including the condition of the property, the age of the property, the loan to value ratio, and your strength as a borrower. While the lender looks at this heavily on the ratio, it is equally important for you as an investor. You need to understand its role in financing equations. So when you look at a property, you analyze it, you must be able to determine whether there is adequate cash flow to service the debt. And without that adequate cash flow, you are not going to get that loan. The banks won't even look your way. So if the deal does not provide sufficient cash flow to meet the requirements, let's say of a 20% down payment, chances are you will have to pass on a deal and go on the next one. Don't make the mistake and say, oh, I just put more money down and lower my monthly payments. This could work to bring your DSCR into line, but guess what? Because now you're putting more money down, you're reducing your cash and your total ROI. Now, the last one we're going to look at is gross rent multiplier. The gross rent multiplier, or GRM, measures the relationship between the total purchase price of a property and its gross scheduled income. It's the ratio to price to income. The GRM calculation is made as follows. Gross rent multiplier equals purchase price divided by gross scheduled income. And here I threw in some numbers to have you get a good visual. Now, the GRM is similar to cap rate in that it captures the relationship between revenue and price. But there are two main differences. The first is that while the GRM measures the relationship between gross revenue and price, the cap rate measures the relationship between net revenues of NOI, your net operating income, and price. The number two difference is that the ratio is then inverted into the GRM quotient, but the denominator in the cap rate. A lower GRM is preferred to a higher GRM. So while a higher cap rate is preferred to a lower cap rate because you're getting more money on a return, a GRM that's lower is preferred than a higher GRM. This is true because the ratio will decrease the lower purchase price relative to income. It would also decrease the higher the income, the relative to the price. So that's it, folks. That's the easy one of 5 ratios you should know. I wouldn't say easy. It took a while for me to grasp my head around it as well. So hopefully it helped you. As I mentioned when I started this video, check out smallapartmentinvestors.com for more info. Thank you very much.